You are listening to Mantra and Magic,
the podcast where Eastern philosophy meets Western magical practice.
Each week, we will introduce you to concepts, people, and tools that we hope will bring you into closer alignment with your true nature and your divine self.
We are your hosts, Amy Solara and Jeremy Renta. Welcome to the show. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Season 2 of Mantra and Magic. I am half of your host, Jeremy Renta.
And I'm the other half, Amy Solara.
Last season, we got up to, was it 43 or 44 episodes?
44.
Yeah,
44
that's
episodes.
crazy. We actually had a weekly podcast. I didn't do much of anything weekly last year, aside from talking to you and sometimes new people. So,
now you're getting to do more. We're going to get fancy. We're going to have edited audio so that it's not a bunch of us going, with crickets chirping in the background, except Deborah.
Unless it's used for comedic
crickets.
effect. Yeah.
That part cracked me up. She's like, keep the crickets. So we wanted to give you guys a little update on where we're at, some of the people that we have coming towards you, some of the formats that we're running. You're going to hear some ads now because we've upgraded that too. And you're also going to hear some new voices and some familiar ones. We're going to bring back some old guests. So if there's anybody that you're like, ooh, we want to hear the conversation go further, please don't hesitate to ask.
Yes, interacting with us is a good thing. Any chance we get to talk to you would be fantastic. So it was really funny too. Like I went back and looked at some of our reviews, which I oddly enough didn't really do last year when we were recording. And I was just like, I started tearing up and crying. I was like, oh my God, we've actually got an active audience who's really enjoying what it is that we're doing. So thanks again for listening all the way through last year. And thanks for coming back for season 2.
Where we were last year, magically, it's like, what's the adjective of mantra?
Mantrally.
We're in a different place now. We're in a completely new space, but in a good way. Where I think I've adopted ceremonial magic in a whole new light, and you've gone down the deep end of astrology. So we've traded places in some senses of the word, and we've also just encountered what the other person is already doing.
It's fun how we have been kind of like swapping back and forth as well, which has been really cool because I think, like you said, you went more into the mantra side last year, and now you've kind of gone to the ceremonial magic side. Part of it is just because living in Colorado and the temperature is not always fun to go outside over the past like couple of months. But I mean, last night it was probably in the 50s or 60s. So I stepped out on the back porch for the first time. We had a really nice clear sky, and I was just like, stars, I've missed you so much. Like, it's so good to see you again. And that has been a big thing for me. We were talking about like how our practice has changed over this past year. And, starting out with working with Deborah and Deborah Silverman, being able to kind of like have a different perspective on the stuff that I was learning, and having somebody who literally has been doing it her entire life to give me hope for where my practice can actually go with astrology. Because again, I've read, books and I've known whatever my entire life. And then I finally get to the point where I meet somebody who is a true master at the art. And I feel like it kind of gave me permission to be more inquisitive and to actually take astrology off of the simple wheel with the sun in the middle and where the planets are, and actually go outside and look and see, and you can actually see the fucking stars move. It's really incredible. So like that, you want to talk about practical astrology. So over this past year, like
episode 26 of the first season, if you want to go back.
There you go. Yeah, if you want to go back and listen to Deborah. This past year, it has been really interesting. I felt like last spring when we first started, I was more into ceremonial. I was doing a lot of more earth magic. I was doing a lot of fire magic, a lot of like very present here magic. And then once we got into the summer and first part of the fall, it went all astral. Like I just spent the majority of my time either outside. If I didn't stay up late and go outside, either to play music or to be inspired or to drop in a ceremony and talk to my angels, they would wake me up early in the morning. And it's so funny and interesting too. It's like I've started to understand more and more like why it is that the Golden Dawn and all of the ceremonial magic practices over the past, how many ever years, really in the past, like, 150 to 200, are all named after, Libra Astarte, or like, it's always based off of the sunrise. It's always based off of like, light and the beginning of the day is what it seems like. And I've noticed really in the past year, or at least 2 or 3 years ago, back when I would get woken up, I would feel like Kali was waking me up, and I would get up because she wanted me to get on my mat and she wanted me to start doing mantra, and I would literally do, I would do mantras for an hour and a half. I would do my yoga practice, and then I would be able to go back to sleep, and I would process, and she would often visit me in my dreams. And nowadays, because I haven't really been working as much with Hindu deities, it's angels that are showing up in my dreams. And we talked the other day. I was saying, I'll have people that are usually actors or somebody famous that'll show up, and it's somebody whose name is John or Michael, or somebody who like correlates, or Raphael, somebody who shows up and correlates to one of the archangels. And it's like, I know that there's a message that I'm being told, and that means that it's also going to guide what my practice is going to be for the rest of the day. I just think that it's really interesting that, no matter what name you put on it, or what deity you think that you're devoted to, like, the way that we can, at least for me, the way that I'm able to communicate most clearly with all of these deities is through, or these energies, is through my dreams. And they'll just show up and be like, hey, it's time for you to try something new. And it's like, oh my God, okay. And it's, being able to do dream interpretation has been something that's been big for me over the past couple of months. I think having my moon in my 12th house and my Neptune in my 11th, it's, those things are starting to kind of like show up. Also, the older I get, because, again, if you're looking at it from an Eastern standpoint, the energy centers start to rise. Our Kundalini starts to rise naturally the older we get, because we're going to go up and out. So I'm feeling like those planets in my chart are also, in those houses, are starting to play a bigger role in my ceremonial practice. So I'm interested to see where it goes. Again, like once it starts to warm up a little bit more, where I can get back outside, and kind of drop back in. I also realized that I have been getting up and doing my practice in the morning and doing my yoga practice, but I'm not necessarily always ceremonial about it. And I can definitely feel a huge difference when I don't cast a circle and do.
Do you do the lesser banishing?
Yes, yeah, on the reg. Like that happens pretty often in our house. So just to start the day off, or start anything off with the LBRP, I think is incredibly beneficial, because it also attunes you to those at least 4 or 6 energies, depending on which way you do the LBRP. But it's like going to a yoga class. You don't always cast a circle when you go to a yoga class. And when I'm doing sessions with people on table at the spa, I don't always cast a circle, because not everybody's comfortable with that. But it's also really surprising to me, like how quickly they show back up. Like they're always there, but like as soon as you throw your ceremony back into your practice, it's just like they were waiting at the door.
Yeah, it's. I feel like everything has shifted since starting All Souls.
Mm-hmm.
I don't talk a whole lot about All Souls Flight School on this podcast, but um, engaging in a mystery school context where it's a weekly thing of leading people up to other temple spaces and other dimensional spaces, and just like casually saying like, yeah, well, I was talking to Thoth the other day. Just, that's what we do. um, my sense of what I do has become like, if life is not a ceremony, everything is going to start to fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
And I notice the second I leave off my journaling practice, the second I
Mm-hmm.
don't pull a tarot card that day, which really funny today. I was doing my usual show me what the day brings, and I always look at like the card that I pull and then what the bottom of the deck is as like the
Yep.
polarity. And I had 2 sevens. I had failure, the the 7 of discs, and then the 7 of wands, which is it's called valor, and that's great. Like valor is great. Failure, not great. And I was just like, oh,
Says
cool.
the Virgo.
Yeah, and Blue sits on my lap and he's like, "Mommy, can I pull a tarot card?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And I just fanned them out, and he pulls out frickin' 10 of Cups,
He's
just
got some
like
manifesting to do.
satiety, like complete satiated state of being. He's like, "Look, it's pretty." I was like, "Yeah, you got one of the best cards in the deck, baby." He's like, "Cause I have the
Hmm.
best life." He didn't say that, but he ran away and played with his Legos, and I thought, like, wow, it's all perspective, right? We're having the
Hmm.
same day. I'm in the same house as him. We're doing all the same activities, but for him, it's complete sense of fulfillment, emotional contentment, joy, and being able to have everything that he wants. And for me, I'm like, I can't keep up with my life.
Well, it's kind of like what we were talking about earlier. You were like, you know what? We have the best hobby because that sense of like there's that sense of dissatisfaction because we don't get paid, we don't right now we don't get paid to do this at all. It's really a passion project more than anything else, but it's like this literally is all I've ever wanted to do. It's
It's
talk about magic
true.
and talk to other people about what their practice actually is.
And
So
if we don't define it as a job, and this is something that I want a lot of people to hear because I think it's important because you and I are learning the lesson. Just because it's not what you get paid to do doesn't mean it's not the thing that fulfills you. And it
mhm.
doesn't mean that you can't have just a normal job and do something that fulfills you on the side. And this, like getting to talk to the people we talk to. We talked to Yakov Darling Khan. I never thought that was going to happen. We talked to Uma Dinsmore Thule, and I never thought that was going to happen. Sneak peek, people. So getting getting the opportunity to speak to all of these amazing people. They're artists and they're coaches and they're just transformational healers
And they're
and
humble
and
and
they're
they're just like you
humble.
and me. Yeah.
Yes, and they're so happy to share the work they do because it's what they love, and there's no limit now to who I feel like we can talk to because of this. And that is huge, I think, for both of us, where we were really good at building pedestals and putting people on pedestals. And then we've also jokingly said that we could have several seance calls and have the spirits of the dead people that we've wanted to talk to. And I'm like, wow, sky's the limit. Who knows what's going to happen in the third season? It might just all be people who are not physically present.
If you want to subscribe, you have to like join the astral projection network that we're on. We don't post to
Yeah,
iTunes anymore.
we won't post to YouTube our strange disembodied conversations with Aleister Crowley. Also weird. Like I feel like I've been able to super embrace ceremonial magic because I just got over the people who were involved.
Hmm.
That used to
Yeah,
be a roadblock.
that is really funny because last year, literally, you and I both talked about this. We both had some things to say about Crowley. I think probably like the first 10 or 20 episodes, we were just kind of like the
Yeah.
guy. I don't know. And
Be
I remember
careful.
talking to Lindsay about it too, where I was just kind of like, you don't have to worry. I'm not going to work with I'm not going to work with Crowley or any of the grimoires that are a little bit on the heavier side. And then literally, it's like a couple of days later where I'm like, I think that's when I found the Thoth Tarot book. You and I both found it about the same time, and I was like, "Oh, okay." And then I started reading the Enochian book that Lon Milo Duquette did of his, and it's like, oh, I see. It's like you can kind of let these preconceived notions fall away because they really it's somebody else is in charge of the marketing for that shit. It's the same way with the we I don't know if we I think we talked about it at one point, but like the satanic panic and everything that was going on in like 70s, 80s, and 90s, where the church and the mainstream media kept pointing at all these satanic groups for doing all of this child molestation. And it was the church who was doing it. It's kind of like, oh, we just did something fucked up. Let's go ahead and blame somebody else for it and kind of call them out on it. So, whatever. I don't know Crowley, but I do know that Israel Regardie, who is one of my greatest teachers, at a very young age decided that he was going to uproot his life and go across the sea, went to England to become Crowley's secretary. And it's like, if he saw something in the guy and what it was that he was doing, and obviously he has had a huge impact because he's the prophet of the 20th or the 21st century. Like
The
he's
new Aeon of Horus.
yeah. So
I like
and
the way
going back
that
and
Duquette phrased it too, with the gods of the previous age are always demonized, and
yes.
and the priests of the current age only ever see the apocalypse. They don't
Mm-hmm.
see beyond. And so, of course, uh, Crowley, and what's really fun, I want to share this with people who don't read as much as you and I do with all of our air, and who may not have come across this little anecdotal fact. Aleister Crowley's mom used to jokingly call him the Beast
The
because
Beast. Yeah, that's
he
where he
was
got his
just
nickname.
a wild child. He would run around, he'd get muddy and scraped up, and he'd come home and she'd say, "Oh, my petite fauve, my little beast." And that was it. And he was like, "Okay, that's my nickname. I'm the Beast." And later he encountered, the Beast in Babylon and was like, "Cool. I'm going to have a really sexy consort." And he had multiple wives. So, and who knows if they were all healthy relationships. I highly doubt that based off of other anecdotal facts, but that's where he got the nickname. It's not because he really was the wickedest man on earth. He thought it was a funny pun. And I want to make t-shirts for children that say Le Petit Fauve. Because
Well,
that's
again, I
wild
think
beast in French. P.S.
all of those people, we can definitely learn something from anybody in history that gave a middle finger to the establishment. Like
Right.
there's definitely something there. And just from what you were saying, it's common knowledge that anytime anybody's trying to uproot shit, there's going to be pushback. But one of my favorite quotes is by Maurice Maeterlinck, who is also an occultist. And it's, "At every crossroads on the path that leads to the future, tradition has placed 10,000 men to guard the past." And it's like, no matter who it is, somebody's always going to say, "Well, that's not right." Because I remember asking my brother in 2011, I think it was either 2011 or 2012. My brother's a banker. He is a hedge fund manager. And I remember asking him, "Dave, I got some extra cash right now. I'm thinking about investing in Bitcoin. Do you think that would be a good idea?" And he said, he said, he said, "Cash is king, and cash will always be king, and our currency system is never going anywhere." And I said, "I guess I should trust you. You're a fucking expert in finance." And that would have probably been a really great time to purchase some Bitcoin.
Would have
But
been perfect.
yeah,
You can
so
still do it.
don't yeah, that's great. I'll buy 1/50,000th of a Bitcoin right now.
They're going
Um,
up. It's going to turn into 1/25th eventually.
it's true, yeah. But I mean, it's just funny to people who come out with new ideas. You're going to be demonized. You're going to be the Joan of Arc. Like
Mm-hmm.
any of those people are also the people you want to listen to because you go, they've actually got some good points because they shake the system, they shake the tree, and they knock down some of the dead leaves. So,
I also think not ascribing to one system. That's something you and I definitely learned over the past year,
mm-hmm,
and have really embraced for this year, where it's like, okay, we don't have to follow the orthodox regimented version of X, Y, and Z. We can bring this in and bring our knowledge from over here for this thing and kind of start to weave it all together, and in a very Juan Melo Duquette way of all the information. How can we pack all the
mm-hmm,
information in until we just become one with everything, versus the
yeah.
Eastern Zen way of how can we get rid of all the information until we become one thing?
Until we became nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we are using mantra, but we're like recognizing, okay, if we want to, isn't Jupiter Gurave?
Guruve. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he's just like blessings. He's just happy teacher blessings. And if we use his mantra and we're doing planetary magic with ceremonial magic, and we also at the same time are looking at our astrology chart to see, oh, Jupiter's transiting this part of my chart, and that's affecting me in this area, then we can focus all of the energy that we're building with the mantra, channeling through the ceremonial magic towards that area of our life. So then it
Mm-hmm.
all works together. And it doesn't have to be like only just chanting or only an altar to Jupiter.
Well, also chanting is not, geographically fixed to just the eastern part of the map. I say it's a big fucking sphere, but it's not just ascribed to. It's not just
Are
locked
you
into.
sure? Are you sure it's not flat with the ocean on
Whatever,
top?
it's still round, baby. It might be a circle, but But I mean, mantra is a repetition of anything. You can go to the grocery store and pick up those things that have the cheesy things that where you're just repeating. Mantra is the thing that you repeat in your mind.
Yeah.
Manas is mind. So being able to kind of pull our head out of our ass when it comes to that whole thing, I think is incredibly important because again, I always come back to blaming white men, but somebody always says this is ours now. And if like it's the whole that we were talking about, we always talk about cultural appropriation. It's like the word mantra itself is not connected to any culture except for the language that it was originally written in, whether it's Germanic or Latin. I'm not really certain. I don't know all languages.
Well, all of them come back to that Indo-European language that contributes to Sanskrit as well, because if people look
Right.
at the history of it, those people came from out of India into India with the Upanishads. Like, those are not native to India,
Mm-hmm.
even. Um,
It
so,
was a bunch of white people. It was a bunch of white men. It was the Aryans. Yeah.
which a lot of people don't want to ever talk about. But go
Mm-hmm.
read Underworld by Graham Hancock. You'll hear all about it, and Indra.
Mm-hmm.
Back to Jupiter. I'm really into Jupiter right now. It's just like he's in the field.
Well, he's in Aquarius for the rest of this year, right?
And
So
he's no, he's not the
he's
ancient ruler. He's the ancient ruler of Pisces. That's why I'm talking about him, because we're in Pisces
hmm.
season. As I wave around my sound
Your
healing,
crystal bowl.
my crystal bowl mallets. So yeah, when we're getting into all of this mantra, and we're gonna have another guest on that you will hear soon, who is gonna talk about mantra from the West and transforming things um, with sound in ways that your brain doesn't. This is why mantra in Sanskrit works for so many people. Your brain
Mm-hmm.
stops associating what the words are and it just starts working on the tones, because we don't
Yeah.
understand all the words, and how to do that with English or Western derived language, so that you are again getting back to the tones and not just trying to hold that intention the whole time with those words. It's like, how do you get to
Well,
the root of it?
again, I think we discussed this last year in one of the episodes, but the whole idea is that language is a way of painting pictures. I say a word so that an image appears in your mind so that you have a correlate to it.
Mm-hmm.
And when what I was saying about dreams is, having someone in your dream who shows up that looks like someone or saying someone's name that you recognize, like those obviously it kind of processes through a different part of our brain, but it's like that information is stored inside of us that it's not the same as reading it or saying it or doing it. With mantra, I I can't remember if it was the Cornelius Agrippa book that I'm reading or if it was the Franz Barden, but he was talking about how the language. I think it was Cornelius Agrippa. He was talking about how languages, when they're like sacred words or the names of deities, when they're translated into another language, it doesn't work, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's not those sound vibrations, or it's not the shapes in light, or if you're looking at it from Hebrew, the shapes themselves are portions of the tree of life that actually vibrate certain areas in our energetic body and throughout the cosmos. So doing a translation might be a way for you to be able to see what the thing is, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the actual name. Just like the dream that I had where Raphael showed up and told me that his name was a name of a friend of mine. Like, that is for me to make the connection of what the angel name is, but the angel itself might still be something completely unintelligible or indescribable.
Well, like
So
we always say we want to connect to these very far off concepts, and I
mhm,
don't think our brains can process them as they currently exist, because we
right.
have laws and rules that we're abiding by in order to remain human.
Well, we
And
yeah we had to forget. It's like we signed a contract to
yeah,
forget. Yeah.
and I think we're getting these little bits and pieces through our dreams because less of our conscious mind is present, and so more of those things can come through. More of their true energetic frequency can come through,
Right.
because we're not limiting ourselves. Like, in a dream, you can fly. In a dream, you can breathe underwater. In a dream, you can travel through time and you can suddenly walk through a wall. And like everything that we talk about wanting to be able to do with yoga siddhis and magic,
Hmm.
you can do in dreams. Therefore, all of these beings, these angels, can come to us so much easier without us being frightened. Because the
Right.
second they appear in real life, we all get terrified. Otherwise, the
Be not
Bible wouldn't
afraid.
have
Yeah.
constant phrases of, don't worry, I mean you no harm.
Just chill.
Just calm down, take a breath. My name's Gabriel.
Pay no attention to the wings.
Yeah. Which is funny because, like, right when we got started, I realized that the one dream I was telling you about in that castle, it was
Hmm.
Uriel. I did like a little string of, this relates to this, which relates to this. Oh, that's who it was. Because he
Hmm.
was shining so bright in the midst of all the rest of it. And I was like, okay, we can work with this. And
Patron archangel of magicians.
which feels so good. It's like he's so friendly. But
Hmm.
and the other thing too, like with all of that, is with the work we're doing, we're not just casting circles, waving wands, lighting candles.
Right.
We're You're doing therapy. I'm doing a lot of shadow work. I did Deborah's Tell Me a Story with my
Hmm.
mentor Milena, and like you saw me cry hard, and that's new. That's not that's not something that I was engaging in frequently up until that point. People had to die for me to cry. So it was like to be able to sit and hear someone's story and want to cry now. Like, oh, I hear the tears. Like the new elements are flowing, but it's because we're doing shadow work. And a lot of
Hmm.
it we're doing with Carolyn Elliott. Like she's tapped into something and I love it. Also started doing tapping.
Hmm.
All the tapping spots. And um, Anton was actually doing it today, and it got his stress and anxiety to go from like one number down quite a few numbers instantly. And I was like, okay, we're still uniting East and West because it's the acupressure points of Eastern
Right.
medicine, which weirdly, that's what I'm reading the boys for bed every night is
Acupressure.
the web that has no weaver. So it's all of the philosophy behind Chinese medicine. These little kids, like, what are you reading for bed? Well, mommy's talking about the difference between qi and jing, which is essence. Like, how does the liver affect, like, the song of this thing or the fluid motion of said party part in this acupressure point 7-3? It's just, it's fascinating how touching on those spots and repeating English mantras, English
Hmm.
affirmations of I fully accept my body for exactly where it is right now and the amount of cortisol that's running through it. But I'm here to tell my body you are totally safe. You are not under threat. You are blah, 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 blah. And like, okay, what do I want to do? I want to have peace and I want to feel very calm and like whatever it is. And you're repeating it over and over and you're touching all of these Eastern points that Western medicine is like, we don't get it. What are meridians?
Look, if you fix the problem, you can't charge everybody for insurance. And you
No, but it's fascinating how many other things are there, and then also how many things are coming back. Like I think I told 3 different people in the past month to read Women Who Run with the Wolves.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times I've been telling people that. I've been telling people forever and ever to read Yoni Shakti, and now we got to talk to Uma, and so I feel like there's some stuff in the field right now that's coming up with this year. Last year was like going into the cave,
Hmm.
and I think this year people are starting to notice that they're looking at the shadows and not the reality. And they're
Right.
looking for where the reality is. And we're all standing outside the cave going, hey, come over here.
It's
Release
a
your
lot brighter.
chains.
Yeah. Something that I have to keep reminding myself of is that all of the things that you and I have been interested in for a really long time, the stuff that really does take up, you know, most of my mental space. Um, there are
Yeah.
people out there. There are people out there who are currently doing it and who are currently better than me at it, and there are people out there who have no clue what it is that that these things even exist.
Yeah.
And we talked a lot about imposter syndrome last season with a lot of our guests, and um, I think that there is something there about like completely owning where you are and being able to kind of like acknowledge the fact that you are in a better place or a further place than you were 10 years ago or 20 years ago, or at a certain point in time I didn't even I feel like I've always realized magic was real, but I didn't realize that there were places where I could go and buy books that actually gave useful information that would be helpful and not just fantasy. Um, so being able to like stand in my strength and where we are and what we've done. I mean, we've completed an entire season of episodes talking about magic, mantra, and music with people who are upstanding in their field. So, um, I want to just kind of give us both a pat on the back for doing what we've done. Like, you started a fucking church,
I
in
did.
this last year. So
I mean,
there's
and that's something else that people who might be new to the show are like, wait, she did what? It's not just a church for witches, it's a church for anybody who doesn't buy into religion as it stands. And church is the only English word that I felt was fitting, because if I said temple, which is what it's called, right? Temple of All Souls. If I said temple, people would be like, is it Jewish or is it Mormon? Because
mm-hmm,
that's the only way that we talk about it in English. And if I say church, people automatically assume Christian. And that's not true either. It's like, here, I'm going to look up the dictionary definition of church, because this is what the reason that I started calling it that. It's it's a spiritual body. It's a group of people getting together who all believe in the same thing: public divine worship.
mm-hmm.
Like, do you go to church every Sunday? Yeah, I
Go
do.
to church every day.
Boom. You're a priest. So we called it the Temple of All Souls because, one, I love Halloween, and I thought that was the only way to say this was a witch church. It's All Souls Church because All Souls Day, and then two, it's for everybody. It's for everybody who wants to experience apotheosis, which is no easy task, but
It's
it's
no mean
doable.
feat.
No. What are you doing? We're trying to become gods. So it's also something that Anton and I were talking about, where I was redefining it. I was like, religion, as it has come to be known, is a place where you go to receive an answer so you can stop working and stop seeking and let somebody else save you.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever that means. That's religion of, I found the answer, I don't have to look any further. This is it. And then you live your life in that state and you don't change. Spirituality is knowing that there is no answer and you're looking for the divine in yourself, and it's a constant seeking and a constant unfolding of the truth.
Thank you, Spirit.
And that's, whoa, that's hard. That's work. It's like the second
It's a
you
lot of
choose religion,
responsibility.
yeah, the second you choose religion, you can just put your hands up and say like, I let go and let God. And the second you choose spirituality, you say, I hold on, I am God.
Mm-hmm.
And it's intense and it's hard. And that's part of the reason that I think you and I love it, because we don't like idle hands, because that's the devil's playground. So we get into this space of, okay, I don't want to buy into religion because I don't want there to be just one answer. That's boring. That's what I used to be doing when I was in the cosmic bliss soup of heaven and completely divine. It's just one thing. I wanted to experience controversy. I wanted to experience contradiction. I wanted to experience polarity. I wanted to experience diversity. I wanted to experience having grief and pain and rage and sexual drive and all the things that come with being human.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that's the true path of spirituality, is this fully embodied presence within my own human vessel, understanding that it is temporary and relishing it for that exact reason,
Mm-hmm.
and knowing it's the vehicle towards the divine again, because that's
Yeah.
all it ever can be. And so that's what the Temple of All Souls is seeking to do, is providing a space where everybody can find the community that comes with church, find the resources and stability of a viewpoint of the world that can help you come into alignment, and to provide the questions that will launch you into spirituality rather than keep you static and sitting in religion.
Well, you're also, I mean, it sounds very Unitarian because you're like, we're just going to look at whatever book is out there, right? Like, I mean,
No, we're
they're all
not.
written, they've
We're
been kept.
mostly looking at the Corpus Hermeticum.
Oh, well, I'm sure that
People don't
Hermes
know
would be
that.
Hermes would be excited to hear that.
Hermes Trismegistus. He's my bro. I mean, because he's also Thoth and Odin. So
You saying that makes me think you could do a Hamilton style uh Hermes. What was that? What are you doing? You got ghosts in the house?
yeah, something crashed on the altar right when I said it was Thoth and Odin. Something fell from the money
He's
altar.
there.
He is. He's present. That was really. It was
Woden,
like,
what up?
yeah.
Yes. So, onto a completely different topic. The other day, I decided to do naked yoga, which is the first time I've ever experienced that. um, it was just me. Nobody else was there.
Joking
Luckily,
on water. Oh my god.
just you're talking about being embodied, and honestly, it was just like it really was incredibly empowering to look at my body from a different angle and to just kind of like
Down dog will never be the same.
it really won't, no. And I mean, I remember having I don't know, it was like a movie or something, but like girls talking about like using a mirror to kind of see the rest of their body. It's like you've never really looked at your vagina, and it's like, well, you get a mirror and kind of check it out. And I was like, I guess as a dude, I guess you could do the same thing, but it's not quite as sexy. But honestly, just like doing my practice the other day, and like just the different poses where you normally, even when you're in a class, especially, but like if you're in a class that's tightly packed, which we haven't had in a while, you're doing wide leg forward fold in front of a bunch of people. You're very conscious of what's going on in your body, and to be completely, just to let any concept of shame go, and to be able to be completely embodied was something that I realized I have never been completely embodied in my yoga practice because of that. Like there's still a little bit of like holding back, or like a little bit of fear, a little bit of shame. And I wanted to make sure that we had it was a non sequitur from you talking about Temple of All Souls to me talking about naked yoga, because you guys also do yoga completely clothed. But
We do.
I just wanted,
We're naked people with clothes on.
there you go. You're always naked underneath your clothes. But yeah, I just it was, it's small things like that, like doing small things in my life in a different way that have also kind of helped me expand the concept of spirituality, because yoga has been a big part of my ceremonial practice, but I'm usually wearing my robe, or I'm usually wearing shorts or something else. So like to be fully me, and it was something that was really kind of cool and nice. So.
That's something that's super prevalent in a lot of the witchy texts, is that you should be naked when you do the rites, because then you're wholly unto yourself. And I not that I've done it often, but I've done it before, where I've been under the full moon completely naked. I realized, oh, my skin is still absorbing that moonlight. It's being told something. There's a reason that we're doing this, because we used to do this. We used to be mostly exposed to the elements, and it shifted the cycles within our body, and it attuned us to the rhythms of what's going on with nature. And I don't think it's either a sexual cult or random happenstance that they always recommend to do that. And if you look at the yogis in the Himalayas, like they're mostly just wearing a loincloth and they've got dreadlocks, and
Right.
that's it. They very rarely are fully clothed in the way that we are in the West. And then in Western witchy crafts, I feel like they're wearing cloaks because they're not wearing anything else underneath.
Right.
And like then they take them off when it's time for ritual. And if you're going through initiation, typically you would get naked, and
Yep.
it's because it's a rebirth. You're coming in to that world, so you're being because initiate means to begin. So you're beginning the next phase of your magical practice the way that you would begin your lifetime, naked, as baby.
Right.
So it makes sense.
I mean, it's been a big part of my ceremonial practice, not necessarily since we've been at the new place, but when we were in Boulder, like we had high walls or high fences, so I could do my practice completely nude, which was really nice. And I think that's part of the reason why Crowley got such a bad rap, is because so much sex magic was tied into it, and sex is magic. Like that is literally, especially if you're working the tree of life, when you move up to Yesod, you're at the sexual organs, like that's where that is. So, that's where the energetic comes from. Damn straight. You got to go through the dick.
Oh my God.
But it's
Hmm.
yeah, it's there has been so much vilification of sex, and it's just like and we talked about circumcision last year too. It's just like just anything that could be done by the establishment to really disempower the individual from being able to connect with themselves and with spirit. And it's I'm grateful to be able to have the ability um, to read these texts, to find stuff that actually does vibe with us. That it's not necessarily that I have to like switch over to Judaism because I want to study Kabbalism, or to have to like become a devotee of Kali because I'm going to be studying mantra or working with any of the Mahavidyas. So
Yeah.
thanks, America. Let's give a big ups to we watched Hamilton the other
Our
day for the first time, and it
puritanical
was yeah. So I
Freemason
want to
founding
thanks for
fathers.
you wig wearing weirdos.
Oh man.
Mm.
It's Alexander Hamilton. Hamilton. Okay.
Yeah, it's such a good. If you, I
It's
mean, you guys have
such a
obviously
good
watched it too
show.
because you've got Disney Plus. But it was God. I was just. It gave me so much. It gave me so much hope and like it's such a like a boost of passion for theater. And I was like, oh, that's why I studied this. That's why I was obsessed with Rent and why I was obsessed with Phantom of the Opera and I didn't always love Andrew Lloyd Webber's stuff, to be completely honest. Like I felt like it was not necessarily always my vibe. But yeah, just musical theater in general. It's just
All of
it's.
it. But you and I
Mm-hmm.
also love catharsis. We
Mm-hmm.
also love group ritual, and
Yep.
that's really what theater
That's
is. And
theater.
that's how it started, and that's why I
Yeah.
liked the history of theater, and I was obsessed with Sophocles and Euripides and all the old school theater where the gods were literally on stage.
Mm-hmm.
And
Everybody's wearing a mask.
yeah, Dionysus is there, drunken rage of the Bacchants. Um, I really did relish the the way that you would watch a human being transform when they put
Mm-hmm.
on a mask or put on a character. And I don't think as many actors who do it realize that they are invoking that spirit and they are totally letting themselves become, especially if they're method actors, possessed by
Mm-hmm.
this other entity that is then operating through their body. And that's why everybody who I think watches live theater, because there's a difference. And yes, you can fall in love with someone through the camera, but when you're in that live theater space and you see someone on stage and they like become greater than themselves and you can't explain it, it's like
Mm-hmm.
it's a spiritual act that's going on. And I think I fell in love over and over and over again with the humans that I watched do that on stage. And I wanted nothing more than to be a part of it and be a part of
Mm-hmm.
that ritual. And I think that's why the music transforms it too. It takes it one level higher than just straight theater. And when you get the musical aspect, then you get that rush of
The
emotions that comes
vibration.
with the
Yeah.
crescendo. Everyone's having like orgasmic ecstasy without even realizing it. Unless you're doing hair.
Then you're aware of it.
Then you're very aware of it. This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius.
And suddenly we're into ceremonial magic. Thanks for bringing that up. It is really cool that that's like part of the ceremony. Which when I first started getting into it, I didn't understand the like why it is that you have certain people perform certain roles or be they're in the role of Isis or in the role of Osiris, and it's like that is such a huge thing. Again, we talked a little bit. We talked to Uma earlier today. This is going to be coming out later, but we talked a little bit to Uma earlier about the whole idea of being able to channel through those gods or goddesses. And it's again, we've gone back and forth on whether or not it's like that's already in us or if it's somewhere outside of us, if it's present or not. So being able to have that embodiment of whatever that god or goddess is in ceremony is really fucking cool. And I think again we talked a little bit about we started talking a little bit about practical magic last year. I think we're probably going to delve a lot more in this season, but being able to calling in the four angels of the corners of the watchtowers and then doing the rose cross, like all of these more advanced rituals that you start getting into is literally being able to see yourself or see another in another place in the room with you so that you are surrounded by these angelic energies. Like the it's funny to like we talked, you said earlier about like be not afraid with the
Mm-hmm.
angels, like always coming in and saying that. And it's kind of like, we're always fucking here, guys. We're always here. We just don't always show ourselves to you. So um I with the stuff that you guys are doing in All Souls, like are you doing any type of ritual along those lines? Like what are you?
It's so the general the temple that's open to the public, right?
Mhm.
So like
Right.
the energetic space that happens with the public. It's like being able to walk into a park. There's no boundaries on uh, like you would cast a circle. There's no sense of this is like the order that you're doing things. It's non hierarchical at all.
Hmm.
Everybody who has the understanding of these philosophies and principles, who's been like a founding member, is one it trades off speaking. So it's
Hmm.
not always me doing the talks. And you're getting the same concepts from different perspectives. So one person can talk about the tenet of correspondence, as above, so below, as within, so without. And then I
Hmm.
could speak about it and you would hear something different, right? Because it's through the human perspective. And then at the end, we just say the same prayer. And it's the gist of it is, may you know yourself and find the light, which is the Temple Creed.
Hmm.
And so it's it's a very generic blessing in that sense, because not everybody's ready for ceremonial magic, not everybody's ready for deep mantra and mudra and
Hmm.
meditation, not everybody's ready for witchy ecstatic dance, but they want it, and
Hmm.
we're introducing it slowly. And I think we don't want it to go like fully dogmatic either, where it's like you must do this every Sunday. We want it to be like, this is what feels right this Sunday. And so
Right.
sometimes there's a little bit of a guided meditation, sometimes there's some breath work, sometimes there's a mindfulness practice, sometimes there's a tapping, sometimes whatever is in the field for the person who's leading the temple talk is going to bring through something different.
Hmm.
And I recognize that when you start stepping towards the LBRP, the Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram, when you start stepping towards asking for the knowledge and conversation of the Holy Guardian Angel, when you start stepping towards really channeling, opening up to star seeds, doing all of that stuff, it radically shifts your life. And unless you are consciously asking for it, it's terrifying. So I don't want to
Hmm.
encourage people to do that in that temple space without everybody who's present being aware
Knowing, right.
of what we're about to do and being consenting towards it. I'm not going to force anybody to evolve. I'm not going to force anybody to do magic. And not everybody's even comfortable with the word magic.
Hmm.
And so I'm recognizing that if I want it to be available for all, because it's for all souls, then
Hmm.
I can't dictate what I think is best for me. I can offer and say, hey, this feels right. Are you open to this? And if even one person is not, then I need to reconsider why. Am I
Hmm.
doing this for me, or am I doing this for the group?
Right.
And if that one person is like really adamant, but everybody else is really excited, then maybe we ask them to step outside. I don't
Hmm.
know. I'm open to how it's growing and how it's shifting and changing, but it's basically a hermetic church. Like if Hermes Trismegistus could be the Jesus figure, that's almost where we're at.
He is. He's just not nailed to anything.
No, he's a philosopher
He's
who's
thrice
made,
great.
yeah, he wrote on some emerald tablets and he handed them down to people because he was here during Atlantis. See, that's the other thing too, is I'm not going to force anybody to believe that he was a real person on this planet, even though I believe he incarnated multiple times the way that Vishnu incarnated multiple times as an avatar.
Hmm.
Because I also think that he was actually here as Narasimha, even though most people don't believe in part lion, part human creatures.
Therianthropes, baby. That's the
They're
other cool thing. You
everywhere.
when you start to see that type of correlation between Eastern and Western, you're kind of like, oh, this is the same book.
It's all the
they're
same
all
thing.
they're all drinking from the same Kool-Aid.
Yeah. And we're all forgetting the same
Hmm.
things too,
Yeah.
which I think, like, if I could pick the 10 people that have radically influenced. Oh, let's do this. Let's do this. I'll pick five, you pick five. Who are the five people that have most radically influenced your practice in the past 10 years?
I'm not sure. You go first.
Okay. Graham Hancock, because every
Okay.
time I read his books, I feel like I'm remembering things. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I'm tapping into stuff that is already there, and he's just either confirming it or reminding me or helping me put the dots together. And well, he'll say something in his book, and I'll think about something that I dreamed about and realize, oh my god, holy crap, that's true. And all of the things that he's piecing together help give a foundation to a lot of the stuff that I believe in that nobody would believe me otherwise. Not that they need to. I might not even believe myself all the time, and I just think, oh, he's got this point from Sumeria, and this point from Egypt, and this point from the Amazon, and this point from the Ojibwe, and they all are talking about the same thing. Clearly, there was a place that I used to exist called Atlantis that is real that nobody wants to deal with, and I fully believe in that. And then I also appreciate how much of the Corpus Hermeticum and the Hermetica in general that Graham has studied. And I feel like that helped lead me towards where I am right now with all the work I'm doing with Thoth and all the work that I'm doing with his other manifestations of Odin, of Hermes, of Mercury. And then I think Carolyn Elliott, just
Mm-hmm.
hands down, the existential kink meditation that she shares with her clients and her students and her courses and all of that. And now in her book of the same name is the most radical way to quickly embody the alternative viewpoint so that you're practicing the left hand path, like the lightning path. That's all that she's doing. She's taking Tantra and making it more accessible than it already is. Because it is accessible, anybody can do it. It just takes years of meditation. But now she's making it like days of meditation instead.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been huge. And then I've I've also really gotten into Lon Milo Duquette. Like he's just he's funny enough that even if I'm crying because what he's saying is true, I'm still laughing. So as current authors go, that has been really, really big. Tom Kenyon and the work that he's done with the Hathors and channeling and sound and all of that, that's really informed the way that I trust spirit and the way that I
Mm-hmm.
trust what's coming through. And then I would say, like, weirdly, because I just keep coming back to it and I don't know how else to embody it, is Diana Paxson and her taking up the runes. And I didn't think that I was going to be that Asatru heathen type of witchcraft practitioner, but the runes have been so powerful. And with other apprenticeships that I've done and the Norns have come up, the runes just like pour in. So I feel like for me, that's something that all the magic is eventually coming around with, where I'm like, oh yeah, Freya, oh yeah, Odin, oh yeah, Thor and Tyr and Balder, and I'm learning their names in ways that I didn't understand before. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's not as strong as maybe some of the others, but also I'm not surrounded by a lot of people who are interested in it in the way that they
Right.
are some of the other stuff. And I feel like if the community was a little bit larger, or if I was a little bit more white, weirdly to say, like then it would probably come through louder. I don't know. What about you?
Well, in the last year, definitely Damien Eccles. I have listened to the Angels and Archangels book so many times, and it's been like a constant go to for me. It's a very easy and simple way to understand um, the angels of the tree of life, the angels of the zodiac, the angels of the I'm going to call it the Mercury sphere because it's the Shemha Mephirosh, but it's technically the sphere around the sun. Um, uh, a lot of good basic info on ceremonial magic. Like he took the Israel Regardie's Golden Dawn book and picked out his favorite things in there is pretty much what it feels like to me. And then he put some of his own experience in there as well. but it is one of the best and easily accessible books on ceremonial magic. So Damien Eccles has been a huge influence on me in the past year. Um, Franz Barden has been another big one too. Like he wrote a lot of his stuff in a cipher, which is relatively basic, which I find to be kind of problematic because you have to do the translation of it. And anybody who's written any type of occult book does that, so that you have to do a little bit of work on it. But just the information that he has, especially in his second book, the book on evocation. I mean, he covers the 360 angels of the Earth sphere. So every single day is covered, not just the deacons. Then he does the moon sphere. He covers the Mercury sphere, the sun sphere. So also, I don't know if you've seen pictures of the tree of life with all of the spirits and the energies that correlate to each of them. It's like he covers all of them up into Saturn, and then he talks about the angels, but not necessarily the spirits. So it's he again, a lot of his stuff is like his first book, Initiation into Hermetics, is really good too. And I haven't gotten into his third one, which is a book on Kabbalism. But I mean, just the way that he talks about stuff, it's like it's relatively effortless, and you can tell that he's done the work because he's made contact with these energies, and he's actually, he's been kind enough to share it. And the guy was, I'm pretty sure he was in Germany during World War II, and in Russia or in that area. So he was arrested twice. He was in prison twice. He died in prison, and I mean, just he was a stage magician, and to see somebody who especially existed and lived in an age and in an area that was so, like you could literally get thrown in jail for talking about this kind of stuff. Like that was it's awesome to find that he has, three of his books that are out there. One other one that was a fictional book that he wrote and then somebody else actually finished for him. But he's been a big influence on me. I've moved away, I feel like, from mantra, but I can't say enough about Thomas Ashley Frond. I think we talk about him all the time. So I'm going to throw him in there just to give him props. Thank you, Thomas, for everything that you've done. Israel Regardi, of course. He, like I said, the Golden Dawn, especially this past year. Lindsay gave me the book for my 41st birthday, so I had it when I was in Boulder, and it became like I said, I was able to recognize a lot of the stuff that Damien Eccles had done in the Angels and Archangels book through that. And it's dog-eared, it's bookmarked. Just the amount of times that I've flipped to a random page, read through something, specifically there's a like praise to the elemental Mercury, and it just it's a prayer. It's short. It's like a page and a half, 2 pages long, and he's there like as soon as you start reading it. So that energy has been invoked enough times through that ceremony that it's very present. It's very strong. Probably for number 5, I would probably say Agrippa. Like I bought his 3 books of occult philosophy a couple of months ago, and it's the same thing. Like I'll open it up, and just the stuff that I'm currently working on, it's right there. It always shows up exactly where it's supposed to be. It has a lot of stuff in languages that I didn't realize that I was going to be interested in. Like it talks about Malachim, it talks about Theban. Like there's a wealth of information that's in there. So it's another one of those $65 or $75 books. So if you are interested, I'll give that the thumbs up. And the same thing with Israel Regardi's Golden Dawn. Like it's worth it just to, even for the things that are incorrect in it, because you'll realize the more that you've done this stuff that there are certain things that are wrong. And it's because I think it was written that way. Obviously, like I said, it's once you start to do the research on things, you realize that things are occult, and it's still occult even when you're reading about it.
And
Like you
that
have to like
occult
feel it in
just means
yourself.
mysterious. It's been kept in the
It's hidden.
dark. It's
Yeah.
hidden on purpose. And
Yeah.
even Hermes writes that, like, the last words he was supposed to have written was, "May these words stay secret until those who are ready to read them rediscover them." And they were put in the dark. And like all the
Right.
people you mentioned, all the people I mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
they're all tapping back into the same thing,
Yeah.
all going back to what we used to know.
Mm-hmm.
On that note, I really have to pee.
Well, it's understandable. We've been talking for a while. So there we go. Episode 1, season 2. We kind of
Woohoo!
covered a whole bunch of shit, but thanks for coming back. We're excited to jump into season 2. We've already got a bunch of good interviews that we've recorded, and we've got more people coming. And if you have anything that you want to say to us,
Please,
shoot us a message.
please
Yeah.
do. Yeah, you can
Yeah.
email me at amy@amysolara.com and Jeremy at
You can hit me up at Jeremy at voicehandsheart.com. My website is back live. So you can find me at voicehandsheart. It is just a landing page that takes you to my webpage, which is jeremyrenta.com, my name.com. And it has all of my offerings if you're interested. The only thing that's not listed on there currently is ceremonial coaching, because I just have coaching on there. And if anybody's actually interested, I feel like the people who are going to find me for ceremonial coaching are going to be people who are going to be finding me through our podcast.
so
So if you're interested, reach out and say hey. So
Yeah, I've
yeah,
got some stuff in the works. I'll be announcing soon-ish in March. So when you hear this, and keep an eye out because things will be ready to launch and it'll be exciting because I'm spring equinox, right? Why not?
yeah.
Why not just wait until the perfect moment to birth something? So
Mm-hmm.
doing that. Yeah, hit us up for astrology readings. Jeremy and I can both do them, and
Mm-hmm.
it's the surefire way to get to know yourself.
Mm-hmm.
More than anything else, look at your astrology chart with somebody who knows how to read it because it's like reading gibberish.
Yes, and if you are interested in empowerment, I'm the stuff that I'm going to be doing is actually teaching people how to cast their own chart, like not like read their chart, but actually cast a circle and to call in the energies that they need for their chart. So depending on where things are in the sky, you're actually going to be able to work with some of the angelic energies that are out there. So there you go.
Getting fancy. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We're glad you're back. We're glad to be back. And we're excited for what's coming.